In 2009, we saw another revamping of the Essential Guide line for a third generation that is still currently ongoing. The first of these was 2007's Star Wars Jedi vs. Sith, The Essential Guide to the Force. What we're finding now is that the term essential will show up somewhere in the title of an essential guide, but it won't necessarily say The Essential Guide to such and such as its main title. Not always. This one is by Ryder Wyndham, and again, it has amazing color illustrations throughout. Excellent, excellent stuff. This one's written in universe and has tons of great information in it if you are a fan of Star Wars and its EU. If you're a fan of just the films, it may be way too much for you, but it is an amazing tome. One of the best essential guides out there, at least of the more recent ones. Whereas Jedi vs. Sith, though, was a brand new essential guide, something we'd never seen in a previous generation before, a guide to the Force, we did finally come back to this whole essential guide to planets and moons concept that Dan Wallace had originated back in the first generation. Instead, this time we got the phenomenal, literally best essential guide out there. I'm not just saying it because I had a chance to contribute to it, and that is Daniel Wallace and Jason Fry's outstanding Star Wars The Essential Atlas from 2009. In this case, what you wound up with was not just planetary information, but tons of historical information, regions of the galaxy given individual maps, and something that a lot of people were looking forward to, updates of planet profiles. So in a sense, it's got a section that's like the original Essential Guide to Planets and Moons, but the rest of it goes way, way beyond that. Moreover, you also have detailed maps of different time periods, maps of the travels in the films, in cases like, say, The Phantom Menace there, of all the different live-action films. And every so often, you'll run across a new map, like, say, for The Hunt for Zinj, that has dates on it, including dates that I and Eddie Vanderheiden were able to submit to the project. So this one's a mixture of things. It's not just an atlas. The name sort of gives you the sense it's a lot less than it actually is. It is probably the best Star Wars historical guidebook of any kind that I've ever seen. It is absolutely amazing, and it's the newest so far. Jason Fry is coming back for the Essential Guide to Warfare, which was picked up when Karen Traviss dropped the project whenever she left Star Wars Publishing, and we're told the Star Wars Reader's Companion is coming after that to continue the third generation. The good news about the Essential Guides is you can pick what topic you're most interested in and get the book about that. The bad news is some of them are getting quite a bit out of date because they tend to happen in cycles, in generations, as I've mentioned. However, one big downside to it, aside from just the fact that some of them are getting out of date, is that, yeah, you can pick whatever topic you are most interested in, but if you want all topics all together, you gotta buy a lot of books. 7 in the first generation, 6 in the second, 2 so far in the current generation, with 2 more to come at least. That's a big price tag if you add it all together. The last of these lines we want to take a look at is the encyclopedias. Now, this was sort of an encyclopedia, Guide to the Star Wars Universe, back in '84. This was a more updated version of that, which was sort of like a quick little paperback encyclopedia in 1994. And then in 2000, we got a Guide to the Star Wars Universe, 3rd edition, which was, again, basically an updated version of a paperback encyclopedia. Unfortunately, along comes, 2 years prior to the publication of this, another publication that comes in hardback and basically slaps it around and says, "Who's your daddy? Yeah, you know, I am your father." And that is the Star Wars Encyclopedia by Steve Sansweet. The sucker clocks in at about 400 pages, so it's actually about 200 pages less than this. But this is smaller pages, and this is black and white. Instead, with the encyclopedia, what you get is a full-color tome here, like any other encyclopedia you might find, albeit in this case divided into 3 individual columns, with tons of Star Wars materials all the way up through right around 2007 going into 2008. It was published in 2008, or excuse me, published in 1998. And it had materials in it leading up through 97 into 98. There's some stuff, of course, from 98 that couldn't get in here because they were in the process of finalizing the publication. But we're talking about something that takes in most of the first decade, just shy of a decade, of the EU, plus tons of stuff from the early Star Wars items. Very much like a cross between these two, where I said this one kind of has a little too much modern EU to feel historical. This one has really not much modern EU, so it does feel more historical, but it's a little bit shifted towards modern. This one's a little more shifted towards modern, but it's a good resource, especially on those really early obscure items. And speaking of obscure, yes, it does go back to that early Return of the Jedi poster where Luke and Vader's lightsaber colors are wrong. Apparently, supposedly, they did that as an homage to that original cover. I think they just screwed it up, but that's just me being cynical. Now, that original encyclopedia ran for about $49.95 cover price. You can now find it used for about $20, if that, most places. But it's because it's been supplanted, and it's way, way out of date. Published again in 1998, 2 years before 2000's Guide to the Star Wars Universe 3rd edition. 10 years after that, in 2008, we got the complete Star Wars Encyclopedia. And this sucker is huge. Whereas the original was about 400 pages, just shy of 400, this one adds over 1,000 pages of new material. In fact, it's so huge, you can't just have one book for it. The complete Star Wars Encyclopedia is now this giant slip-cased volume here that includes inside it, easier just to do it that way, 3 separate volumes. Going backwards, P through Z, H through O, Ho, and A through G, Ag. Probably saying, Ag, we didn't realize that we said Ho on the cover of the first one or the second one, Arr. What you have here, again, is a great encyclopedia, tons and tons of information, brilliantly presented in color, very well organized, very well designed, lots of information provided that adds to the EU in and of itself. Great full color illustrations on section markers between the different letters. I mean, this really is a great, great book. But you're going to pay for it. This book, or I guess these 3 books in a slip-cased volume, this encyclopedia set, the Encyclopedia Star Warsica, is $125 cover price. Or should I say slipcase pricey, way down there at the bottom, $125. Fortunately, you can get this thing a lot cheaper on places like Amazon for about $70, $75. It's still a pretty penny. It's still a lot more than any of these other guides have been. But it is a massive amount of information. Again, over 1,400 pages of information. And if you think about it, if this was the original encyclopedia, and here's one volume of the new, pretty close in length here, and that was $50, you would expect something like $150 if you were going 50 times 3 for the 3 volumes, kind of getting a deal even at $125 compared to the material of the first one and its price tag. It's just that nobody wants to spend $125 when they could spend $75. You'd have to be crazy not to take that kind of deal if it's out there. So, the key here is, Star Wars guides are continuously growing. They're changing as the saga changes. No guide is ever going to be complete because by the time it's published, after it's written, it's already out of date. The Star Wars saga grows on a monthly, if not weekly, basis when it comes to the comics. So, where's the best place to find good, up-to-date Star Wars information? Good fan resources. Bob Vitas' Complete Encyclopedia, Wikipedia, or the Star Wars Timeline Gold, for example. Great places to look for recent information, but those are fan sources. If you want to find a legitimate, official source of Star Wars information, have it all in one place as a great reference book for your collection, you're going to want to find a guide to the Star Wars universe if you're into the older stuff, the essential guides if you're looking for specific topics, or the encyclopedia if you just want a quick, handy reference with quick blurbs on a lot of stuff. Bear in mind, though, if you get the complete encyclopedia, there is a bonus. It can double as a workout item. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next visual showcase.